I'm on.
All of the poker players in Lucky You are real. Some famous, some not. We cast them from the casinos of Southern California and the casinos of Las Vegas. We did this because I wanted to surround our actors with real players. I wanted them to see what it was like to sit at the table and handle your chips and handle your cards and bet as though you did it 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Wanted the actors to absorb that authenticity, and I wanted to capture that authenticity on film.
The scene that might take us a week to shoot, well, it's a week that you're sitting at a table for, 14, 15 hours a day, sitting around with these guys. So, all you're doing is talking poker and talking about how to play and how to look like to play and stuff. So I think it actually, definitely for me, it elevated my ability to sell the character, for sure, because it's just, you learn so much by spending time with them.
Fasten your seatbelts. Huck is here.
What's for breakfast? Don't say you are.
So many people are gamblers or have been to casinos or have seen real gambling, and it's kind of a downer when you watch a movie and the gambling is so unrealistic. I mean, that, I think it kind of could ruin a otherwise good movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, Doyle Brunson has just been eliminated.
We were incredibly fortunate to enlist Doyle Brunson as our poker consultant. And Doyle, of course, knows better than anybody that it's not an exact science. Players make unpredictable moves.
Nothing. You raised me with nothing?
Sometimes nothing's enough.
I've always said that poker was a people game. What I've always attributed my success to is being able to read people.
Call.
There's not a right and a wrong move all of the time because it depends on the situation. It depends on your read of your opponent. It depends on your gut in terms of what you feel your opponent is doing.
Just call.
Calls.
What do you mean, just call?
It depends on, the mood of the game, the ante-structure, the person that I'm playing against. Like, what do you do with the Jack-10 in the first position? Do you come in with it? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends.
In Lucky You, we deal with both cash games and tournament games. We very much wanted LC's game to, in a sense, replicate the so-called big game at the Bellagio that most poker players have heard about for years and years and years. And Doyle Brunson has played in the big game for several decades.
We call it the big game. It's played mostly at the Bellagio. The nucleus is a group of professionals that, we like to compete, we like to play high, and we play a little bit higher than most people want to play.
Typically, the big game's 2 and 4,000 or 4 and 8,000. And you do see a lot of the same faces.
We wanted to give people the feeling of that game because it's not a televised game. It's not a game that most people are even aware exists, but it's the game that we feel represents the pantheon of poker.
We were fortunate enough that he invited us to sit behind his chair and watch him play, and he introduced us to all of the players. And we not only had a great time and learned a few things, but we subsequently invited some of those players to appear in the movie to lend authenticity to the big game.
Well, one of the things that makes it totally realistic is the fact that it's a lot of the real pros that actually play in that game. There's Ted Forrest and Eric Lindgren and Ming Lee, so it's just like the regular old game, with Robert Duvall, which adds a little spice to it. It's kind of fun.
Where you going, Huck? That real estate guy just walked in. We're starting the big game.
In our game, you never see a game with just really good players. There's always somebody who's feeding the game.
You need people that come from the outside world to come in and play. Those are the guys that wind up in ultimately losing the money that keeps the game going.
Beating up on a whale, some real estate guy from Florida.
I guess you could call that a tell.
He stuck $250,000 change.
I'm down with a little fish tonight, Tommy. Swim with the guppies for a while.
Okay, kid. Good luck.
And also, one of the things that that we wanted to show was that in the cash games, they actually enjoy and are rewarded or punished, as the case may be, by their ability to play all of the games. In other words, they will play Omaha, they'll play Texas Hold'em, they'll play high-low, and play a round of each.
My pretty ladies are just dying to step out.
Well, they'll be in good company.
Because of the popularity of the tournaments on television, there are so many people that are now only focused on Texas Hold'em, and we wanted to show that in fact the world of poker is bigger than just Texas Hold'em.
You know, you got to be pretty talented to set into a game where there's so many different games that you might not be familiar with. The better player will usually surface in those situations.
And also keeps out people who specialize in one particular game, so they can't, you know, they're forced to play other games.
I don't like that personally, but they do it on purpose for certain players. They find your weakness, so they add that game. Then they put your game up. It's like a tricky for poker players. So you have an edge always against certain players. So it's a strategy.
86 for low?
87.
Ace wins for high.
You win the whole pot.
You know, I don't have a favorite game other than to say my favorite game is whatever someone's least favorite is. You don't make money because of how good you are. You make money because of that other people aren't as good as you. It's relative. It's not absolute.
I've played up to 1,500, 3,000 in Bellagio and got my clock cleaned a little, you know, but I enjoy playing with the boys. It's a great challenge. I had one night where I lost $250,000, and it takes a little bit to get back on your feet. You got to make sure you're confident if you're going to go in and play for those kind of stakes.
When you're not doing so well or when you're on a losing streak, it's good to go back down and play, you know, at a different level to get your confidence back up and to start winning at that level and then to shoot back up into the big game.
In tournament play, luck is more of a factor because, in effect, what you're doing is you're only playing for a finite amount of time with a finite amount of chips. And if you get a good run of cards, a player who is not necessarily that consistent can do extremely well. Whereas in the cash game, for these players that are in it for the long haul, day after day, week after week, year after year, it's all about consistency and the ability to bring home the winnings.
In a tournament, if you lose all your chips, you're done, and you know that's the end of your tournament. Whereas in cash games, you can lose all the chips in front of you and rebuy. But there's also differences as far as strategy goes.
In a tournament, you have to think about it. You might make 2 or 3 days. You don't want to get knocked out with a bad decision. So you might lay a lot of hands down for this reason, which normally I don't do that. So it annoys me to play tournament.
Actually, I love the side game better than the tournament. I haven't played the tournament for the last 6 years because I played the side game so big. I've been playing the biggest limit game in the world. And now, it's the poker so big. Everywhere on TV, I start playing more tournament.
Well, the level of competition's a little stronger in cash games. You know, people are fighting for big money and, you know, they're not really giving up too much. I mean, sure, there are players that are better than others, but everybody's trying pretty hard in the big cash games. And in tournaments, you know, you get a lot of beginners that are coming in just for the excitement of playing. A lot of them are pretty much giving their money away.
In a tournament, if you get up at toward the last and you push in $400,000 or $500,000, you know, you're not risking that really. You're just risking your initial buy-in. And boy, in a cash game, you stick $400,000 or $500,000 out there, and it's a different feeling. I mean, it takes a little intestinal fortitude to do that.
You're the only man I enjoy losing money to. Loan me 20 LC.
Many players have people that they borrow money from to get back on their feet. And of course, many tournament players have sponsors.
I'll stake you the 10 grand buy into the World Series. We split the winnings, 60 me, 40 you.
There's different arrangements. Sometimes they make 60-40, even 75-25 with no makeup. In other words, if they lose, they don't owe anything, which, yeah, I don't like that. I think everybody should play their own money, and if they don't have the money, I think they should go down to the lower limits and wait until they can move up to the higher limits.
I've always played with my own money. I started at the bottom and just worked my way up.
So you just gamble all the time?
I never bet on sports, never play against the house, and I only bet on my skills against the skills of other people.
One of the things we loved about Eric Roth's original script was the way it showed how poker players generally prefer to bet on their own skills against the skills of other people, which is what playing poker is all about. One of the ways they do that, other than at the poker table, is to engage in proposition betting.
I tell you what, I'll bet you 5,000 that you can't run 5 miles, shoot 18 holes of golf, 78 or under, in 3 hours or less.
So the golf sequence in the movie is an example of a prop bet. It's about someone challenging you to do something, usually physical in nature, usually involving sports. And there's an amount of money that's agreed to that makes it worth the while of the person who's being challenged to do it, and the winner takes all.
I've shot free throws in the dark for thousands of dollars, golf, you name it, I've probably done it.
One time I did a standing backflip to win $7,000. I gave Howard Lederer the doubles alleys in tennis to beat David Gray out of a $30,000 bet. Ran a marathon on July 4th on the red UNLV urethane track for $7,000, which by far was not worth it.
10 to 100 over. Well, you still owe me $1,000 for miniature golf, remember? Shovel against the rake? And put it on my account.
Poker is a people game, and it was endlessly fascinating getting to know the players that we rounded up from all levels of the game and learning a little of their individual stories.
I was an area supervisor for McDonald's Corporation. 3 years ago, I quit my job and started playing poker more seriously.
My wife looked at me one day and said, "You're old. You want to go retire in Miami? What do you want to do?" "I want to go to Las Vegas and become a poker dealer at Binion's Horseshoe and deal in the World Series of Poker."
I came to Vegas in 1959. I dealt the first game of Texas Hold'em in Las Vegas. It was a very slow day in 1960 at the Golden Nugget. Bill Boyd said to me, "Well, kid," he says, "about time you had your game. Do you want this one?" I said, "No, boss. I'll take another one. No one's ever going to play this game."
When I come to this country, I only have $10 in my pocket. I don't know anybody in this world, and I speak no English somehow. And I met my sponsor. The first job I'm working is at Kentucky Fried Chicken. Work for $3 an hour.
My game has changed over time. When I first started playing in the real high games out here, Doyle called me Bet 'em all Callahan, because when I was unsure of what to do at a particular time, I'd just move them in and make them make the decision. And that really wasn't the best way to play.
I tried to play poker 4 or 5 times a week. A lot, yeah. And those other 2 days are something, catastrophes happen where I can't go.
Most of the time I play 10 to 15 hours a day.
And I basically play when I feel like it and when I feel like I'm going to play well. And it usually adds up to about 1,200 hours a year.
I play for leisure, and I play to win also. So, you know, I limit myself. If I win $100 or $200 a day, that's it.
If you learn to play poker well enough and learn to manage money, you'll never be short of money.
I've lost all my money in one day, like many times. I don't really stay up all night anymore. I mean, I try to avoid it, but depending on how my money situation is, if I know I have to stay up because it means a lot of money, I will. But, you know, within the next 4 or 5 years, I'm hoping to, like, tone that down where, you know, I do play only, like, a couple times a week.
You can't play every day. It's very stressful. It's not healthy, let's put it this way. And that's why I live in Houston.
Why don't you just go rest up a little, Huck? We never close.
No time like the present, Tommy.
Look, one of the key things with playing poker, too, is your emotional stability.
It's yours.
And if losing really, like, affects the way you play, then the best thing for you to do is either stop playing forever or at least stop playing for that period until things go better for you. Because what happens with most players is when they start losing, then they start to play bad. And then they think it's their luck, but it's not luck anymore. Now it's their skill is gone, and they're just giving their money away. It's called tilt.
You have to clear your mind from your big losses sometimes. If you keep chasing your losses, You lose all your bankroll.
I mean, players, you know, they get emotional and they play bad and, you know, they dump off their money and everybody else is like vultures ready to take it.
In poker language, Huck goes on tilt when his father's around. His emotions get away from him.
I'd bet more if I had it. You would? Yeah.
That is a big part of being a successful poker player, knowing when to quit, when to play, and besides being in control of yourself.
You got it backwards, kid. You play cards the way you should lead your life, and you lead your life the way you should play cards.
There is a wide array of personalities and styles when it comes to poker players, but one generality holds true. The better the player, the better their relationship with Lady Luck.
There's tremendous amount of luck in poker, especially in a short session.
But in the long term, skill is going to come into play.
It's kind of like a mathematical equation. You know, the longer you play and the more hands that are dealt, the less luck that there is involved.
If you put in, say, you know, I'm guessing 2,000 hours, then the luck factor basically goes down to 0 and it becomes all skill.
In order to be really good at this game, you have to sort of look at it like a job, look at it in a practical way, and not start to believe that, oh, you know, I wore this shirt yesterday, maybe if I wear it tomorrow, or when this dealer's dealing, I always lose. This dealer's lucky for me. Then you start driving yourself crazy.
I can't afford to be superstitious.
Don't you believe in luck?
I believe in skill.
Once gamblers and poker players start becoming superstitious, it could make them crazy, and it can like really distract them from what they really should be thinking about.
When you feel it, you know, you don't want to be superstitious and say, you know, I'm feeling like things aren't going to happen, but you don't want to believe in luck, even though everyone does.
Well, I can't think of any way to put it into percentages, but luck is a big element of all gambling games, and that gives inferior players a chance to beat the better players. And if you had it to be straight skill, then quickly they'd find out that they couldn't win, and you wouldn't have bad players to play with you.
Luck, I think, is indicated by the cards that are dealt to you, but it's the ability to play even the worst cards that makes you an amazing player.
It's not about the cards you get, it's really what you do with them.
Sometimes you're unlucky and you just got to deal with it. It's how you handle adversity that's going to make you win or lose at this game.
Everybody goes through bad times, and that's the times that you see the true character of people surface. And if you don't have the ability to handle bad times, well, you'll never make it in the world of poker.
Huck. Good skill.